We were made to be connected to nature, and these screens stop that.
Now, I sat down with some of my favorite exotic pet content creators while I was at AnimalCon USA last week, and I asked them a myriad of questions for a full-length documentary that I'm working on about the exotic pet hobby and pet trade. But in today's video, I'm going to show you some of the answers that they gave me for this question. Are exotic pet shows a benefit or a detriment to the hobby, and why? My name is Richard, this is the Tarantula Collective, and let's just jump right into their answers.
Hi, I'm Tanner from Serpa Design. I specialize in enclosure design for various different types of creatures. So I think that shows like this are beneficial where everybody can kind of get together and do that sort of thing. I'm honestly, the longer that I'm in the hobby, I kind of get torn on reptile shows specifically. I hadn't gone to one for the entire pandemic, and then I went to one sort of recently, and I don't know what I think about them anymore. It definitely has a lot of benefits to them, but at the same time, I think maybe that there's stuff that I guess across the board as a hobby we should probably adjust, but maybe if we can get those kinks worked out, I'd say that both are good.
Yeah, I think that exotic pet shows could be good or bad depending on how they're portrayed, right? I think the majority of them are really good because it exposes a lot of people to animals, that gets them interested in animals, and hopefully, that interest, goes over to education, conservation, stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's certainly pet shows around the world that aren't really in the great ilk, but I think that exposure to animals in any way we possibly can, especially if they're in the right positive light, is only a benefit because, as time goes by, these animals are becoming more and more issues with deforestation, with, even the illegal pet trade, with all kinds of other things. So we need to make sure that we're protecting the future. I always say I want my grandkids and my great-grandkids to be able to enjoy these animals as much as I have my whole life. And to do that, we have to expose the community and the public to these animals, and I think exotic pet shows can actually do that.
I think they're a benefit for sure. I know they can look kind of icky from the outside looking in, like, profiting off of live animals and stuff. But, these people are typically very passionate about what they do. They're very knowledgeable. And if not, every person I know vending is, trying to focus on the captive breeding and keeping species populations alive and well. And, that is a huge focus in the hobby. And, just having those shows, it kind of brings a lot of people in to familiarize themselves with animals and stuff, and maybe care about them more than they would have otherwise.
Exotic pet shows are a positivity to the hobby, in my opinion. I got my first snake at a reptile show. My love was reintroduced to myself, I guess, at a reptile show. I rediscovered my passion, I should say. So I think that overall, they are a benefit to the community.
I believe the exotic pet shows are a benefit or a detriment to the hobby, and why?
An extreme benefit, and I'll tell you exactly why. I just spent a month in Africa looking at how the world's most popular pet snake is living in the wild, but also its economic impact in West Africa. I will tell you this with absolute 100% certainty. If it wasn't for the pet trade in the United States, North America really, Europe, other places, ball pythons in the wild, and other species of snakes and reptiles and arachnids and other animals would be completely decimated. The reason is because the pet industry gives the people who live in these impoverished areas an economic incentive to keep the animals alive in the wild so that it creates a sustainable market. Without that market, they would kill all the animals for either food or the skin trade, and it's happening now. And I witnessed this firsthand when I was in Africa. And so what we're doing is we're creating a living ark, which means that the habitat of these animals, the animals themselves, they're being slaughtered in the wild for various reasons. But in our homes, they are free from predators. They are free from basically everything that they face, all the dangers that they face in the wild that are threatening their very existence. We are keeping them in an invisible ark, and therefore we are saving the species.
What's up, guys? I'm Mikey Bustos, aka Ants Canada. I personally think exotic pet shows are a benefit to the hobby. One, because it allows people to network and exchange information. I learned so much at Animal Con, for instance. You know, I'm an owner of reptiles, amphibians, arachnids, so I learned a lot from the OGs, so that was really cool. And I just think it's really good for any hobby, really, for a community to come together and just kind of exchange ideas and learn from each other.
That's a tough one. I would say that they are a benefit in that, you know, of course, you've got people that are interested in buying tarantulas. So when we're talking about them and bringing up different species, of course, you can go to a reptile show and find those things, or an invert show if there's such a thing. But it's a double-edged sword, of course, because more and more people getting interested will start to demand more. And of course, there are some species that are out there that are threatened in the wild, and they're popping up in the hobby when some of them probably shouldn't be. But yeah, they make their appearances because of the demand. But definitely, I think it's more of a benefit because, you know, it exposes people. People start getting into it. And if more people get into it, it becomes more common.
I think it's a benefit. I think, unfortunately, good and bad get mixed up there, and you can't punish the good with the bad. What I would like to see there is see the expo creators, presenters, holders, vet vendors a little bit more, you know, because there are people doing really good work by preserving these animals through their breeding efforts.
Yeah, I think one of the issues with that question is the punishing the good with the bad. You have, let's say, 90 people doing good and 3 people doing bad. People are going to remember the bad. They're not going to remember the larger quantity of people trying to put out that good message or doing the right thing. You've got the 3 people that, you know, somebody caught on camera, and there you go. There's the negative outlook. So it's harder to change somebody's mind that way when all they remember is the negative.
I'm Kelly Fornes from Cave Invertebrates. I think they are a double-edged sword. I think the entire animal hobby is a double-edged sword. There's good and bad. You have people who really care about animals, and you have people who just want to make money off them. Animal conservation, realistically, is a losing battle. There's things disappearing off this planet every time, and when we do have wins, they're far and few in between. Something good that's happened through expos and people selling animals is the story of the P. metallica, where in the wild they are critically endangered, if not functionally extinct. There might be 1 or 2 pockets of them left in the entire world, but in captivity they're thriving. Same thing with species like T. celadonia. Cloud rainforests are getting decimated. Within 40, 50 years, there probably won't be any more cloud forests. There won't be any more T. celadonia. But in captivity, there's probably more T. celadonia now in captivity than they are in the wild. And they didn't take every single one of them out. They didn't fish them out. They grabbed a few, they procreated, and they're flourishing right now.
I'm all for having a space that people can go and learn. Like, I think they serve a wonderful purpose in educating. I think that it's a great space for breeders to network and show the work they're doing. And I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding. You know, I see people say, like, I don't like seeing animals in small containers and stuff, but it's no different than you purchasing a cat or a dog that's coming in a carrier. You have to understand that that's a temporary thing just for that day or whatever, and then they're back into the loving care and large enclosure that they're being housed in. I think one thing I'd like to see less of is the selling of wild-caught animals as pets. I think it's really important that wild animals that you see a lot of at expos end up in the hands of keepers who are dedicated to creating captive populations. Because at the end of the day, any animal that's in the pet trade originated from that source, but now, thankfully, most specialty pets are captive bred, and I think that's a common misunderstanding, especially tarantulas. I think we have it going great. Most animals that are available, I think, are captive bred, and that's a really nice thing to see. But with shows, I think they're a great place to learn if you're looking to see who you can purchase your animals from, to connect with that community in person. I think we've come a long way over time. The standard of expos has gone up up a lot. I think there's a lot of positive growth and change, and overall they're a great event to see and learn about the animals you want to purchase.
My name is Garrett Hartle. On my YouTube channel is Wild World TV.
And do you believe that exotic pet shows are a benefit or a detriment to the hobby, and why?
I mean, they're obviously a benefit to the hobby. I think the real question, if you want to get brutally honest about it, is are they a detriment or a benefit to the animals? Because that's what's more important. And I would say that that's a really difficult question, because like personally, as an animal lover myself, and I'm madly in love with all my animals, they're like my babies, I don't like taking them to expos. It's scary, it's dangerous, it exposes them to potential like diseases, theft, just travel can be risky. And so we really, and I know most animal vendors have to do this too, you put a lot of thought even into the whole process to get them there safely. But at the end of the day, I do think it's a benefit to them, because if you watch something on social media, you cannot get an idea for what you love in the world. That's what's so great about platforms like YouTube, where creators can express themselves and we can have access to their imagination. But when you see these animals in person, your heart starts to beat inside of you, and you find out why you are alive through connecting with these living creatures. And of course, we never lose animals or anything going to these expos, It's just scary for me as a dad to have my babies be put in any kind of risk at all. But the number one thing we do is I always make sure I get into technical conversations with people. I bring staff and people. I'm like, listen, I want you to have 2 or 3 snakes out that are hardy, well-established animals, friendly, acclimated, for kids to touch. You know what I mean? To get as many hearts beating that come through our booth as possible. And I'll tell you what, you could ask any creator here at the show when that one moment was for them, and they'll probably go all the way back to when they were 2, 3, 4 years old, and their heart has been beating ever since out of their chest because of the experience that they had connecting with an animal. Because we were made to be connected to nature, and these screens stop that so often. So to be able to get those animals out and have people fall in love with them, you create waves of people that move on from there and continue to pack animals and the world in a beneficial way for animals forever.
Well, they had some very insightful answers and some very interesting outlooks on this topic. Now, it's going to be a while until the full-length documentary is out. I still have a whole lot of locations to go to, and people to interview, and things to record and edit. But if you want to see this documentary when it is released, make sure you have subscribed to my channel. I also just dropped the fall line of merchandise on my website, thetarantulacollective.com. I will leave a link down below in the description as well. And every purchase will get a personalized thank you video from me, just as an added little bonus. And on a completely unrelated note, I'm just kind of curious about this, but if there's anybody out there that recognizes what this shirt is about, if you know what band it is that I'm representing here, be sure to let me know down in the comments. I'm just kind of curious who else is on my level, share some similar tastes in music. But I want to thank all of the creators that took the time to answer my questions, and stay tuned because I'll have some other videos coming out soon that are going to be answering some different questions that I asked them. As always, I appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for buying Tarantula Collective merchandise, and I will see you next Tuesday.